In the far northern stretch of California, where the redwood trees rise like ancient guardians of a forgotten world, there is a creek that locals refuse to visit after dark. They call it Redwood Creek, though older families say the name was once different, a native word that roughly meant, "do not follow." Over generations, the warning turned into folklore, and the folklore dissolved into silence. Because silence is sometimes safer than remembering. The forest around the creek is unlike any other in America. The trees tower so high that daylight enters as thin, fractured beams, falling like dust through cathedral windows. On clear mornings, the air smells of pine and cold water. But at night, the forest becomes something else, something breathing, something waiting. The darkness thickens between the trunks, swallowing sound and time until every direction feels the same and every shadow feels alive. People say the forest is haunted. But not by ghosts, not by spirits, and not by anything that ever wore a human face. Rangers speak of something far older, something that does not age and does not belong to any legend told around campfires. A thing that whistles, not like a bird, not like a man, but like something imitating sound the way a predator imitates a cry to lure a victim into the brush. The whistling man. Though he is not a man, and never was. The first whispers came from hikers long before the park had signs or rangers or trails. Before California was California. Before the logging roads carved scars into the forest. The native people refused to hunt there after sunset. They said that when the world becomes quiet enough, you can hear him following you, step for step, breath for breath, whistle for whistle. They said he listens from the branches. They said he moves where the wind moves. They said he watches from the edges of your vision, waiting for the moment you turn toward him. And those who turn, never return. Most people laugh at legends, until they hear the whistle themselves. And realize too late that the forest has a voice of its own. This story begins with two brothers, Elias and Jonah Porter, 24 and 20. Born in Oregon, raised on road trips, and connected through their father's love for nature. But Redwood Creek is not a place built for safety, and some forests do not welcome visitors, no matter how gentle their footsteps. Elias was the braver one, tall, athletic, steady. Jonah was quieter, softer, more anxious, but he followed Elias everywhere. When Elias suggested a weekend camping trip deep inside Redwood National Forest, Jonah agreed. They wanted a break from city noise, a little peace, a little sky, a little silence. They drove south in Elias's old Jeep, rattling over gravel roads while the brothers talked, laughed, and shared stories from the months they'd spent apart. The sky was bright when they left Oregon, dimming into a soft amber haze when they crossed into the shadow of the redwoods. But Jonah felt something wrong the moment they entered the deeper forest. The trees leaned inward, tall enough to blot out half the sky, and the temperature dipped even though the sun was still visible. Elias joked about it, but even he grew quiet when the road narrowed into a single-lane dirt path leading toward Redwood Creek. There were no other cars, no other campers, no voices, no trail signs. Just endless redwoods and a silence so deep it felt like a held breath. They parked near an old, rotting ranger sign that read, Redwood Creek Trail. Most of the letters had faded from rain and age. At the bottom, someone had carved a warning using a knife, the wood still splintered, as if the message was new. Do not follow the whistle. Jonah stared at it for a long time. Elias brushed it off as teenagers messing around, though his voice lacked confidence. They set up camp, built a small fire, and watched the light flicker against the trunks of trees that looked older than time. But the fire felt small. Too small. As if the forest swallowed the light before it could rise. By the time night fell completely, the forest turned unnervingly silent. No owls. No insects. No rustling leaves. Jonah's chest tightened. He had camped all over the Pacific Northwest. Forests always made noise. This one felt like it was listening instead. Around midnight, the brothers finally drifted off to sleep. Jonah woke first. To whistling. Soft. Slow. Measured. Not a tune. Not a melody. Just a single, drawn-out note, rising and falling like someone breathing through their teeth. It came from deep in the woods. Then again, closer. Jonah froze, unable to move. He nudged Elias, his voice shaking. Elias groaned awake just as the whistle came again, much closer this time, almost beside the tent. Elias grabbed his flashlight, hands trembling despite pretending to be calm. When he unzipped the tent, the cold outside felt unnatural, colder than the night should have been. The forest was pitch dark. But the ground was not empty. The beam of the flashlight fell onto a single bare footprint in the mud. Small. Human. Fresh. And pointed towards their tent. Jonah whispered that they needed to leave. Elias nodded slowly. Then the whistle echoed again, so close that Jonah felt it inside his chest. Elias whipped the flashlight upward. And saw something perched in the treetops. It was tall. Too tall. Too thin. Its limbs bent in angles that should have snapped bone. Its head tilted all the way sideways, as though hanging by a thread. Its mouth hung open wide enough to stretch into something inhuman. And from that open mouth, the whistle came. The creature dropped from the tree without a sound. It didn't land like a person. It unfolded. Elias screamed for Jonah to run. The brothers sprinted through the forest, branches tearing at their skin, the flashlight bouncing violently until it shattered against a trunk. Darkness swallowed them. But the whistle did not stay behind. It moved. Left. Right. Behind them. Ahead of them. As if the creature was everywhere at once. When they reached the creek, Elias shoved Jonah across the slippery rocks. The water splashed freezing against their legs. Jonah stumbled but made it across. Elias turned to follow. And the creature stood on the opposite bank. Its limbs dragged along the ground. Its hair hung in wet strands. Its face had no eyes, only round, hollow indents. The whistle rose sharply, piercing the night. Elias pushed Jonah away one last time. Run! Jonah ran. He didn't look back until he reached the dirt road. Elias wasn't behind him. Only the sound of the creek echoed in the trees. Jonah reached a ranger station in hysterics, screaming that something had taken his brother. That a creature whistled. That Elias was still in the forest. The rangers searched for days. They found the tent. They found footprints leading to the creek. They found only one set returning. Elias Porter was never found. But 3 nights after the search ended, a ranger locking the supply shed froze when a whistle drifted through the trees. Soft. Slow. Measured. Then a voice followed, Jonah's voice, or something imitating it. Elias, help me. Jonah didn't sleep for 3 days after the search ended. His eyes were raw, swollen, hollow. He stayed inside the ranger cabin under supervision, refusing to leave, refusing to eat, refusing to talk except to repeat the same broken sentence. It wasn't human. The rangers assumed trauma. They had seen it before, panicked hikers imagining shadows, shapes, animals that never existed. But Jonah's story didn't feel like panic. It felt like truth wrapped in terror. Every night, around the same hour, Jonah jolted out of shallow sleep screaming that the whistle was outside the cabin. The rangers would check, flashlights cutting through the trees, but they never saw anything. Yet something felt wrong. A silence hung over Redwood Creek like a thin sheet of ice, waiting to break. On the fourth night, the supervising ranger, Officer Roland, heard it. A faint whistle drifting from the tree line, so soft he thought it was wind. Until it stopped suddenly, mid-note. Wind doesn't stop like that. Something living does. Roland stepped back inside the cabin, pale, and found Jonah sitting upright on the cot, staring at him with wide, shaking eyes. "You heard it, didn't you?" Jonah whispered. Roland didn't answer, but the silence was enough. By morning, Jonah's mother arrived to take him home. The rangers promised they would keep searching for Elias, though they were already losing hope. And Jonah left California with a sense that something was following behind the car. He could feel it. In the rhythm of passing shadows. In the silence between breaths. The farther they drove, the stronger the ache in his chest grew. As if the forest wasn't done with him. As if he hadn't escaped anything, only delayed it. 3 weeks later, Jonah tried to rebuild himself. Therapy. Medication. Avoiding dark rooms. Avoiding windows. Avoiding mirrors, because sometimes he saw Elias standing behind him in reflections. Not physically. Not clearly. Just the outline of his brother's shoulders, right before the image blinked away. His therapist told him the brain can project grief in painful ways. But Jonah didn't believe it. Because the shadows weren't shaped like Elias. They were too tall. Too thin. Too wrong. Then, one night, at 3:12 a.m., he woke to the softest sound imaginable. A whistle. Coming from inside his bedroom closet. Jonah froze. Tears filled his eyes instantly, not from fear but from recognition, the way a person freezes when they know a predator remembers their scent. The closet door creaked. Just an inch. Then another inch. Then stopped. Silence. Thick. Suffocating. Jonah waited, praying it was his mind. Praying he would wake up. But a voice whispered from the dark inside the closet. "Jonah." It sounded like Elias. But not exactly. Like a recording of Elias played through broken teeth. Jonah screamed. His mother burst into the room and flicked on the light. The closet was empty. But the carpet in front of it had something on it. A wet footprint. Small. Bare. Human. And the water wasn't clear. It was creek water. Cold. Dark. Muddy. Exactly the kind from Redwood Creek. Jonah goes back. No one could stop him. No one could convince him he imagined it. Jonah knew the truth. If he didn't go back to Redwood Creek, the thing would keep following him. Closer each night. Hungrier each night. So he returned to California alone. He left a note on his desk. "If I don't come back, don't search for me." When Jonah arrived at the park entrance, the rangers were shocked. Officer Roland tried to talk him out of it, saying the forest was unsafe, saying no one goes there at night anymore, saying even the wildlife had changed, fewer animals, fewer sounds, fewer signs of natural life around the creek. But Jonah insisted. Roland finally agreed to accompany him for one night, under strict conditions. They entered Redwood Creek at dusk. The forest didn't feel like a forest anymore. It felt like a room, a sealed chamber, growing smaller with every step. The air was too still. No wind. No birds. No insects. Only the sound of their boots crunching through leaves. Then they heard it. A whistle. Far away. Almost gentle. Roland's hand went instinctively to his gun. Jonah whispered, "It's him." The whistle echoed again. Closer this time. Roland aimed his flashlight toward the deeper trees. "Stay behind me," he said. But Jonah was already stepping forward. Something was calling him, not with a whistle, but with a pull behind his ribs, like an invisible hand tugging him toward the creek. At the edge of Redwood Creek, something was standing on the opposite bank. Tall. Thin. Bent backward at the waist. Arms hanging almost to the ground. Head tilted completely sideways. It looked like a human silhouette stretched too far. Too wrong. Too hungry. The moment their lights hit it, the creature snapped its head upright, not by lifting it, but by twitching it violently into place like breaking a bone in reverse. And then it opened its mouth. The whistle came out. Long, piercing. Impossible. Roland shouted for Jonah to run. He fired a warning shot. The bullet echoed. The creature vanished. Gone. Not into the trees. Not into the shadows. Gone, as if the forest inhaled it. The flashlight flickered. Jonah felt breath on the back of his neck. He turned. Nothing. Roland grabbed him. "We're leaving. Now." They sprinted toward the trail, but the whistle began circling them, first far away, then overhead, then behind them, moving faster than any living thing. The trees bent slightly, as if something tall brushed against them while passing. Jonah stumbled. Roland yanked him up. They burst out of the forest and didn't stop running until they reached the ranger truck. But as Roland started the engine, Jonah saw something standing at the tree line. The creature. Holding something. A shirt. Elias's shirt. The same one he wore the night he disappeared. Jonah collapsed into tears. The creature tilted its head again, slowly. Painfully. Deliberately. Then it raised its free hand and crooked one long, bony finger toward Jonah. A gesture. "Come back." The engine roared and Roland sped away. The creature didn't move. But Jonah heard the whistle echo through the trees, carried by the wind as they fled. Jonah didn't speak during the entire drive back to the station. His hands were shaking uncontrollably. Roland kept looking at him, trying to find the right words, but none came. The terror in Jonah's eyes told him everything. Whatever they saw in the forest. It wasn't finished. The truck reached the ranger station just before dawn. The sky was a dull gray, draining slowly into daylight. For a brief moment, Jonah felt relief, as if the creature couldn't cross beyond the tree line. But when he stepped out of the vehicle, something caught his eye. The station door was already open. Roland froze. He always locked it. Every night. Every time. They stepped inside slowly. On the floor, right in the middle of the main room, lay wet footprints. Small. Bare. Human. Leading from the door. To the center of the room. To Jonah's cot. The footprints were still wet. Roland whispered, "It was here. Inside. It followed us." Jonah's chest tightened. He could feel the same cold sensation he had felt the night it whispered from his closet. Like the air was heavy with breath that wasn't his. Something had followed them out of the forest. Not physically. Not with footsteps. But with memory. With imitation. With attachment. Jonah sank onto a chair, hands gripping the edges until his knuckles went white. Roland spoke softly. "We have to tell the others. We need backup. We need..." A whistle drifted through the open doorway. Roland's voice stopped mid-sentence. The whistle wasn't coming from the trees. It was coming from the roof of the station. Roland drew his gun again. Jonah stared upward at the ceiling as dust quietly fell from above, as if something heavy shifted its weight on the wooden planks. The whistle stopped. Silence. Roland whispered, "Stay inside." He stepped outside with the gun raised. Jonah remained still, breathing shallow and fast. He heard Roland speak outside, his voice low and tense. "Come down. Slowly, hands where I can see them." Then another voice responded. Low. Wet. Not human. "Come, closer." The sound froze Jonah's blood. He stood abruptly. "Roland." He rushed toward the door. A gunshot exploded. Then another. Then silence. Jonah trembled violently, one hand clamped over his mouth as he forced himself not to scream. He waited. And waited. And waited. No more sounds. Finally, he stepped outside. Roland lay on the ground beside the truck. His eyes were open. Unmoving. His neck was twisted, too far. In a direction no neck can go. Jonah stumbled backward, falling into the dirt. His breath came in broken gasps as he crawled away from the horrific sight. Then he heard it again. The whistle. Behind him. Slow. Purposeful. Almost mocking. He turned his head. And saw it. The creature stood on top of the ranger truck, its long limbs draped over the windshield like a spider resting on a web. Its mouth hung open, stretching wider, wider, until Jonah could see nothing but darkness inside it. The whistle came out like a thin blade of sound, slicing the air. Jonah scrambled back inside the cabin, slamming the door shut and locking it. The creature didn't move. Didn't chase. Didn't even turn. It simply watched. As if waiting. As if letting him live wasn't a mistake, but part of the plan. Jonah runs again. By sunrise, Jonah had packed everything he owned and left the ranger station. He didn't tell the other rangers. He didn't call the police. He didn't know how to explain that something not human had killed Roland. He left California by bus, heart pounding every time the engine hummed or the brakes screeched. He kept checking the aisle for tall silhouettes. He kept checking the windows for shadows that shouldn't exist. When he finally reached home, he didn't move from the couch for nearly 2 days. He slept lightly. He spoke rarely. He ate almost nothing. But the forest didn't let him go. Every night at the same time, around 3 a.m., he heard noises. At first it was only the creak of floorboards. Then soft footsteps outside his door. then gentle tapping on his window. Then the whistle, faint but unmistakable. His mother begged him to stay in her room. Terrified by his paranoia. Terrified by the things she didn't understand. But Jonah refused. He knew the whistle wasn't for her. It was for him. On the seventh night after returning home, Jonah woke to his bedroom light turning on by itself. He sat up. Slow. Careful. Quiet. The light flickered once. Then he heard breathing. Right behind him. Cold. Wet. Shallow. Jonah turned slowly. His closet door was open again. Not wide. Just an inch. Just enough to see the darkness inside moving like water. Then a voice whispered from within. Jonah. I found you. Jonah screamed. His mother rushed in. But she saw nothing. Nothing but her son collapsed on the floor, shaking violently. The next morning, Jonah bought a bus ticket to go back to California. He didn't tell his mother. He didn't tell anyone. He knew what he needed to do. He couldn't escape it. It wouldn't stop. Not until he went back. Not until he finished what started at Redwood Creek. Returned to Redwood Creek, again. 2 rangers recognized him when he arrived. They tried to stop him. Tried to convince him to leave. Tried to tell him the trails were closed indefinitely. But Jonah didn't care. He sneaked in through a side maintenance road while the rangers were on patrol. By the time the sun set, Jonah was already deep inside Redwood Creek once more. The forest greeted him with silence. The trees leaned inward as if bowing. The air tasted metallic. The creek water was unnaturally still. Jonah stepped forward. And the whistle echoed instantly. Close. As if the creature knew he had returned. As if it had been waiting. The trees swayed though no wind moved. Shadows thickened between the trunks. Jonah walked deeper, tears blurring his vision, body trembling. He whispered into the dark. Elias, if you're here, please, please. The forest responded. Not with Elias's voice. But with something wearing his voice like a mask. Jonah. The voice drifted from the treetops. The whistle followed it. Slow. Pulling. Inviting. Jonah fell to his knees. Please, he cried. Let him go. Take me instead. The whistle stopped. The forest breathed in. Everything went silent. Then, from behind him, the creature stepped out from between the trees. It had grown taller. Longer. Its limbs reached the ground. Its body bent, crooked, unnatural. Its head hung sideways, swinging gently like a broken pendulum. And in its left hand was a shirt. Elias's shirt. Still wet. Still dripping. Jonah stared, paralyzed with horror. The creature leaned forward, lowering its head until its hollow eye sockets were inches from Jonah's face. Then it opened its mouth. And whispered, in a perfect copy of Jonah's own voice. Help me. Jonah didn't breathe. He couldn't. The creature's face, if it could be called a face, hovered inches from his own. Hollow sockets stared into him, searching, studying, learning. Its mouth remained open in a trembling, unnatural stretch, like skin controlled by strings. Then, without warning, the creature straightened its spine in a sickening, jerking motion. Every bone inside its body cracked at once, creating a dry snapping ripple that echoed through the trees. Jonah gagged from the sound. The creature stepped back. One slow, deliberate movement at a time. Its limbs dragged across the ground, digging lines into the dirt. And then something horrifying happened. It lifted its right hand. Long, thin, jointed in too many places. And pressed a finger into the center of its chest. The skin gave way like wet cloth. It reached inside itself. Jonah's stomach twisted as the creature pulled something out from its chest cavity, something soft, something human, something Jonah instantly recognized. A necklace. Elias's necklace. The one he never took off. The one their father gave him. The creature dangled it in front of Jonah, shaking it gently like a lure. Jonah felt the air rip from his lungs. "No," he whispered. "No, please." The creature tilted its head again, that same awful, too fast angle, and the whistle returned. Soft at first. Then louder. Then louder, rising into a piercing, disorienting shriek that made Jonah drop to the ground, pressing his hands over his ears. He screamed, but the whistle drowned his voice completely. Branches snapped above him. Leaves shook violently. The forest trembled like something enormous had awakened. The whistle stopped instantly, not fading, but slicing off mid-sound. Jonah lifted his head. The creature was gone. Only the necklace remained, lying in the dirt in front of him. Jonah crawled forward, hands shaking uncontrollably. He picked it up. It was warm. Still warm. As if Elias had worn it minutes ago. Jonah pressed the necklace to his forehead, sobbing. The forest watched in stillness. Then the creek behind him rippled. Jonah turned. Something was rising from the water. A human shape. A shoulder. A face. For one impossible moment, Jonah thought. Elias. A figure stood waist-deep in the creek, dripping with cold water. Its hair clung to its face. Its clothes were shredded. Its eyes were wide, terrified, desperate. It looked exactly like Elias. "Jonah," the figure whispered. "Help me." Jonah stumbled toward the water, tears blurring his vision. He tripped over a root, falling hard to his knees, but pulled himself up and waded into the creek. "Elias! Elias, I'm here! The figure extended its shaking hand toward him. "Please, please hurry." Jonah reached out. The creature moved too fast for human eyes. The Elias figure's skin rippled like fabric. Its face peeled open at the mouth, a long, vertical slit tearing down to the chest. Its arms stretched into blackened, bony limbs. Its head split sideways, revealing the hollow nothing inside. The imitation collapsed like a shed skin, falling into the water. And the real creature rose behind it, towering, bending, unfolding itself into the figure Jonah had seen in nightmares. Jonah stumbled backward into the creek, scrambling desperately across the slippery stones. The creature watched him with unnerving stillness. Then, slowly, it spoke. In Elias's perfect voice. "Why didn't you wait?" Jonah froze. The creature's mouth widened, splitting grotesquely. It stepped forward, water pouring off its limbs in sheets. And Jonah realized the truth. This thing wasn't mimicking Elias. It was learning him. Studying him. Wearing him. And soon, very soon, it would become him. Jonah fled the creek, crawling onto the bank with bloody hands. He didn't stop running. Branches slapped his face. Roots tore his shoes. His lungs burned like fire. But the whistle followed. Above him. Below him. Beside him. Every direction at once. He tripped and rolled down a slope, crashing into a fallen log. His ribs screamed. His vision blurred. The whistle sounded again, right behind him. Jonah crawled forward until his fingers touched something smooth and cold. Roland's flashlight. Left behind from their last escape. He grabbed it and turned it on. The beam pierced the darkness. And he saw the creature standing 10 feet away. Perfectly still. Its neck twisted. Its limbs swaying gently. Its hollow sockets reflecting nothing. Jonah pointed the light directly at its face. The creature recoiled. Just slightly. Barely noticeable. But it moved. Jonah's heart slammed with a spark of desperate hope. The light. It hates the light. He took a shaky step forward, holding the beam steady. The creature hissed silently, as though its lungs were filled with cold water. Another step. Another recoil. Jonah walked backward slowly, using the flashlight like a shield. The creature trembled, its form flickering like a shadow losing shape. For the first time since the nightmare began, Jonah felt something unfamiliar. Control. He reached the trail and turned to run. The flashlight flickered. Just once. Then again. Then it went out. Darkness swallowed him. The whistle began immediately. Loud. Triumphant. Close. Jonah screamed. He ran blindly through the forest as the whistle echoed from every possible direction, circling him, closing in. Something tore past him, inches from his face. Something grabbed his shoulder. But Jonah slipped free and kept running until something massive blocked his path. The creature stepped into the faint moonlight. Its limbs unfolded. Its shadow stretched across the ground like a black river. Jonah backed up until his spine hit a tree trunk. The creature lowered itself until its hollow face aligned with his. Silence. Absolute silence. Then, it whispered, in Elias's broken voice. Come into the dark with me. And its hand reached forward, closing around Jonah's throat. Jonah couldn't breathe. The creature's fingers tightened around his throat, long, cold, impossibly strong. Not the strength of muscle, but the strength of something that has never been alive and cannot understand fragility. Jonah clawed at its arm, his nails scraping against skin that felt like wet bark. The creature's hollow sockets stared into him, unblinking, then its mouth opened wider and wider until it seemed ready to swallow his entire face. The whistle came out again. But this time, Jonah heard something else underneath the sound, a voice buried deep inside the whistle, like a human trapped in a hurricane of breath. Jonah. Elias's voice. Faint. Desperate. Begging. Jonah tried to speak, but only a choking gasp escaped his crushed throat. The creature lifted him off the ground, dangling him in the air like prey. His vision swam. The forest twisted around him. Stars flickered out. As Jonah's consciousness blurred, a single thought rose through the fog. If Elias is inside that thing, I'm not leaving him. Jonah reached into his pocket, fingers trembling, searching blindly. He found it. Elias's necklace. The creature paused when it saw the glint of metal. Its grip loosened, only slightly, but enough for Jonah to inhale a thin, sharp gasp of air. Jonah raised the necklace and pressed it against the creature's chest. The reaction was instant. The creature shrieked, a horrible, guttural sound that rattled the trees. Its fingers convulsed. Its back arched violently. Its entire body twisted as if something inside was clawing to break out. The whistle shattered into static. Jonah dropped to the ground, coughing violently. The creature staggered backward, limbs jerking in unnatural spasms. Its skin rippled as if something beneath it was trying to escape. Jonah forced himself to stand. He held the necklace out in front like a weapon. "Give him back," Jonah whispered hoarsely. "You took him. Give him back." For a moment, just a moment, the creature stopped moving. The forest fell silent. Then the creature slowly, painfully, reached its hand toward its own chest. It pressed its palm against its ribs. And its skin opened like paper splitting. Inside the creature's chest cavity, a shape moved. A human shape. A face. Elias's face. Eyes closed. Lips pale. Skin drained of color. As if he had been submerged in water for days. Jonah's heart cracked open. "Elias," he whispered, voice trembling. Elias's eyelids fluttered. Barely. Slowly. They opened. He looked at Jonah. Not with fear. Not with confusion. With a terrible, heartbreaking sorrow. "Jonah," he breathed. The creature's skin tightened around him, pulling him back inside, as if swallowing him again. Jonah screamed. "No! Please! Let him go!" The creature tilted its head, studying Jonah with a strange, almost curious stillness, as if trying to understand the emotion trembling in his voice. Then it spoke. Not in Elias's voice. Not in Jonah's voice. In its own voice. A deep, layered sound that felt like rot and river water and broken bone. "He stayed for you." Jonah froze. "What?" "He stayed, because you ran." Every word hit Jonah like a knife. "He stayed in the dark, so the dark would chase you instead." Jonah shook his head wildly, tears spilling down his cheeks. "That's not true, that's not. He loved you more than freedom." The creature stepped forward. "And now, he belongs to me." Elias's hand reached through the split chest, trembling, shaking, reaching for Jonah. But the creature dragged him back inside with a wet, tearing sound. Jonah lunged. The creature shoved him with one massive arm, sending him crashing into a tree. His spine lit with fire. The world spun. The whistle returned. Sharp. Triumphant. Predatory. Jonah crawled through the dirt, choking on sobs, struggling to stand. When a voice echoed through the forest. "Hey!" A flashlight beam cut through the dark. Then another. Then another. 3 rangers burst into the clearing, guns raised, shouting commands Jonah couldn't understand. The creature twisted toward them slowly, its mouth widening. The brightest flashlight beam hit its face. The creature screeched, stumbling backward. Its skin writhed. Steam rose from its limbs. The rangers fired. The bullets passed through the creature's body like they were hitting mist, but the light hurt it. The light hurt it. Jonah staggered to his feet. "More light," he screamed. "Shine it on its head." The rangers unleashed every beam on the creature. Its limbs shook violently. Its whistle cracked, distorted, glitching like a broken signal. It stumbled backward toward the creek. The water behind it began to churn. The creature tried to disappear, slipping into shadow, bending into trees, fading like smoke. but the lights pinged it. It shrieked and collapsed into the creek, the water exploding around it. Elias's necklace fell from its chest into the dirt. And Jonah screamed his brother's name until his voice broke, but the creature was gone, leaving only ripples on the black surface of the water. Jonah collapsed to his knees, choking on air and tears. One ranger approached him slowly. "Jonah, what was that thing?" Jonah shook his head. He opened his trembling hand. Elias's necklace lay in his palm. Warm. Still warm. As if someone had been wearing it seconds ago. Jonah looked toward the creek, tears streaming. "Elias," he whispered, "I'm not leaving you again." The water rippled. Once. Twice. As if something beneath the surface had hurt him. Something waiting. Something not finished. Jonah closed his fist around the necklace. And the forest began to whistle. The forest whistled. Not the sharp, mocking sound of the creature. Not the thin, trembling breath Jonah had heard so many nights. This whistle was deeper. Older. As if the trees themselves exhaled the sound through their roots. The rangers froze, raising their flashlights again, sweeping the area with wide, panicked beams. But the whistle didn't come from the creek. It didn't come from the branches. It came from everywhere at once. Jonah stumbled backward, clutching Elias's necklace tightly. His heart hammered, not from fear, but from the horrifying possibility. The creature wasn't dead. It wasn't gone. It was calling for something. The largest ranger, a veteran named Briggs, shouted, "We need to get out of here. Everyone fall back." But Jonah didn't move. He stared at the water. Ripples still spread across the surface. Slow, wide, deliberate. Like something enormous was rising from below. Roland's death. Elias's disappearance. The mimicry. The whistles. The footprints. None of it felt like the work of a single creature anymore. The creek churned again. Briggs stepped forward, gun raised. "Stay behind me." Something grabbed him. A pale hand burst from the water and wrapped around Briggs's ankle. He didn't even have time to shout. He was yanked beneath the surface with a violent splash. The other two rangers screamed his name and ran to grab him, but the water surged upward, knocking them backward like a wave made of hands. Jonah stepped back, horrified. The water wasn't water anymore. It writhed, folding and unfolding, as if hundreds of limbs were moving beneath it. He lifted the necklace again, his voice cracking. "Elias, if you're in there. Please, please." The creek exploded. Dozens. Hundreds. Of pale, distorted shapes surged upward. Not fully formed. Not human. Not creatures. Faces. Drowned faces. Open mouths. Hollow eyes. Bodies twisted in the same unnatural angles as the whistling man. They climbed over one another, crawling up the bank, dragging themselves forward on broken wrists. The rangers fired wildly, but the bullets passed through the shapes like shooting fog. Jonah stumbled backward until his spine hit a tree. One of the faces lifted itself out of the water, inches from Jonah, dripping mud and weeds. It had Elias's eyes. Jonah choked. "Elias." The face blinked. Slow. Heavy. Burdened. Then its mouth opened. Not to speak. To whistle. Jonah's scream tore through the forest. He scrambled away, tripping over roots, clawing at the ground as the shapes crawled after him, dragging their ruined limbs through the mud. "Run!" one of the rangers yelled through tears. "Jonah, run!" But Jonah couldn't leave. Not again. Not after learning Elias had stayed to save him. He turned back toward the water, voice shaking harder than his limbs. "Elias! If that's you, please, fight it! Please!" The shapes froze. Every last one of them. The forest held its breath. Then the whisper came, not from the shapes, but from the trees behind Jonah. Soft. Broken. "Jonah!" Jonah whipped around. Elias. Elias stood between the trees. Alive. Human. Whole. Dripping water. Shivering. Barefoot. "Elias, oh my God," Jonah sobbed. "Elias." Elias lifted a hand. "Don't come closer." Jonah froze. His tears stopped mid-fall. Elias looked wrong. Not monstrous. Just wrong. His skin was too pale. His shirt was torn. And his shadow moved slightly out of sync with his body, lagging behind him by half a second. Jonah whispered, "What did it do to you?" Elias didn't answer. He took a step forward. The shadows around him took too. The rangers backed away in terror. The crawling figures melted back into the creek as if bowing to a king. Elias raised his head. His eyes shifted. Not blue. Not brown. Black. Endless. Jonah stumbled backward. "Elias, that's not you. Please tell me that's not you." Elias smiled. A slow curl of the lips Jonah had never seen before. Then Elias's voice echoed, but deeper, layered, unnatural. "I stayed for you." Jonah shook his head, sobbing. Please let him go. I'll do anything." Elias stepped closer. "You already did." Jonah looked up, confused. The creature, the original one, rose behind Elias like a shadow peeling off a wall. It towered over him. Limbs bent, neck twisted, mouth open. And Jonah finally understood. The creature wasn't one thing. It was many. All the missing. All the lost. Absorbed. Copied. Reused. Elias wasn't inside the creature. Elias was becoming the creature. Jonah screamed and rushed toward him. Elias lifted his hand and whispered, "Jonah, run." The creature's limbs wrapped around Elias, pulling him backward into the dark. "No!" Jonah roared. "Elias, I know!" He lunged, grabbing Elias's wrist. And then, Jonah's hand passed straight through him. Like touching mist. Elias's voice trembled. "Go, please, before it makes you like me." Jonah sobbed so hard he couldn't breathe. "I'm not leaving you." Elias began fading. Slowly. Painfully. His last words drifted through the forest. "You should have run the first time." Then he was gone. The whistle returned, louder than ever. The creek erupted. The forest shook. And Jonah fell to his knees, clutching the necklace to his chest, screaming his brother's name as the whistling man rose fully from the water for the first time. Towering. Shifting. Changing shapes. Learning. Becoming. Until it finally settled into one familiar form. Elias. But smiling. A wide, broken, impossible smile. The creature stood at the edge of the creek wearing Elias's shape like a perfect skin. Same height. Same hair. Same face. Same scars on the knuckles. Only one thing was wrong. The smile. A stretched, trembling, hungry smile that didn't belong to Elias. A smile held in place by something pulling from underneath the skin. Jonah could barely breathe. "Elias," he whispered, voice breaking. The creature tilted its head, that same unnatural snapping angle, like a puppet whose strings were pulled by too many hands. "Jonah," it answered, perfectly mimicking Elias's voice. Jonah stumbled backward. His legs were shaking so violently he could barely feel them. His vision flickered. Behind the creature, the creek churned again, dozens of faces rising briefly, then sinking like drowned memories. Jonah clutched the necklace until it cut into his palm. "Give him back," he begged. "Please, give my brother back." Elias's face softened. Almost human. Almost kind. "There is nothing to give back," it said. "He is part of me now." Jonah's heart split open. "No. That's not true. That's not him. I know him. I know." The creature stepped closer. Each step bent the ground beneath it, as if the forest itself recoiled. "Jonah," it whispered. Elias stayed. "You ran." Jonah fell to his knees, sobbing. "I came back for him." "You came back for yourself," the creature said gently. "And you came too late." Jonah felt something inside him snap, a mixture of rage, guilt, love, and despair so intense it made him dizzy. He stood up, shaking violently. "I'm not leaving," he said. "I'm staying with him." "You want me? Take me. But let him go." The creature's smile widened. "Will you stay, forever?" Jonah swallowed hard. "Yes." The trees trembled. The creek quieted. The wind stopped entirely, as if the entire forest leaned in to listen. Elias's shape stepped close enough to touch Jonah's face. Its cold hand brushed his cheek. Then, it whispered, "Give me your voice." Jonah frowned. "What?" The creature lifted a long, thin finger and placed it gently on Jonah's throat. Pain exploded through his body, like a burning wire ripping through his vocal cords. Jonah screamed, or tried to, but no sound came out. His voice vanished instantly. He fell to the ground clutching his neck, choking on silence. The creature inhaled deeply, as though savoring something invisible. Then it opened its mouth. And Jonah heard his own scream come out of it. Perfect. High. Broken. The creature was eating his voice. Then, worse. It used Jonah's voice to speak. "Elias," it said, perfect imitation. "Please don't leave me." Jonah's heart shattered. Using his voice, the creature began to whistle. Jonah screamed silently in horror. The whistle repeated, louder, drawing shapes out of the creek again, faces Jonah recognized from missing person posters around the ranger station. Dozens of them. It was calling its collection. Calling the ones it had taken. Calling the ones it would take next. Jonah crawled backward, shaking uncontrollably. The creature tilted its head again, Elias's hair falling over one eye. "You gave me your voice," it whispered. "Give me the rest." It stepped forward. Limbs shifting. Shadows bending around it. Jonah stumbled to his feet, coughing, choking on air. He tried to run. The trees closed behind him. Not metaphorically, Literally. Branches moved. Roots twisted upward. The forest sealed him in. The creature approached slowly, savoring his terror-like scent. Jonah lifted the necklace again with trembling hands. "Elias," he mouthed, though no sound came out. "Please, help me." For one fraction of a second, Elias's real face flickered beneath the creature's skin. A tear rolled down its cheek. Then it was gone. The monster smiled. It lunged. Jonah screamed silently as the creature's arms wrapped around him, pulling him toward the creek. Cold fingers dug into his shoulders. Mud splashed around his feet as he was dragged. He clawed at the ground, nails tearing, throat aching from the sound he could no longer make. The water rose around his legs. Then his waist. Then his chest. The creature whispered with Jonah's stolen voice. "Don't run. Don't leave. Stay with me." Jonah's tears mixed with the creek water. He pressed the necklace to his lips. "I'm sorry," he mouthed. The creature lowered its head to his ear. "Forever," it whispered. And the forest began to whistle. Soft. Slow. Satisfied. The water closed over Jonah's head. Jonah stumbled to his feet, coughing, choking on air. He tried to run. The trees closed behind him. Not metaphorically. Literally. Branches moved. Roots twisted upward. The forest sealed him in. The creature approached slowly, savoring his terror-like scent. Jonah lifted the necklace again with trembling hands. "Elias," he mouthed, though no sound came out. "Please, help me." For one fraction of a second, Elias's real face flickered beneath the creature's skin. A tear rolled down its cheek. Then it was gone. The monster smiled. It lunged. Jonah screamed silently as the creature's arms wrapped around him, pulling him toward the creek. Cold fingers dug into his shoulders. Mud splashed around his feet as he was dragged. He clawed at the ground, nails tearing, throat aching from the sound he could no longer make. The water rose around his legs. Then his waist. Then his chest. The creature whispered with Jonah's stolen voice. "Don't run. Don't leave. Stay with me." Jonah's tears mixed with the creek water. He pressed the necklace to his lips. "I'm sorry," he mouthed. The creature lowered its head to his ear. "Forever," it whispered. And the forest began to whistle. Soft. Slow. Satisfied. The water closed over Jonah's head. Epilogue. 2 weeks later, hikers reported hearing a new sound along Redwood Creek. Not the creature's whistle. A different one. Familiar. Human. Broken. A young man's whistle. The rangers found no footprints. No signs of struggle. No body. Only a necklace tangled in the roots at the edge of the creek. Cold as stone. Still wet. Still warm in the center. And sometimes, when the forest wind settles just right, you can hear two voices whistling together. One deep. One young. Calling. Searching. Waiting. Because the whistling man is never one shape. Never one voice. Never one face. He is everyone who stayed. And everyone who ran. And now, he is Jonah too.